Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Enlightened Entrepreneur. This program is sponsored by World Outsourcing Solutions, where we specialize in helping business owners with all your outsourcing needs. Today's interview is a very special interview to me because I know for a fact that to move from where I am to where I want to be, I need a mentor or a coach who has done that or has been doing that for many years. And I know a lot of business owners in our community will find this training or this interview very, very useful. Now, my guest is Jane Bromley. Now, Jane Bromley is the founder of Strategenic company, and they've coined the blueprint for growth. Now, over the past 20 years, Jane and the team have tracked the most successful businesses, those growing profitably at 15% or more year after year, and that continues to go from strength to strength and have got a bigger margin of growth. And Jane has tracked all this and has documented and has come up with a blueprint which Jane will be able to share with you today. So I'm hoping you have your pen and paper with you, so you'll be able to take a lot of notes and apply some of the strategies that Jane is going to be sharing with us. Welcome to the interview, Jane.
Thank you, Yukai. That's very kind.
Incredible. To get us started, Jane, would you share with our audience your journey of what you've been doing and how you are helping business owners today?
Yes, of course. Well, I started off working with companies like Hewlett Packard and Vodafone and Intel, and I worked with the leadership team of Hewlett Packard, and I've always been fascinated about growth, and therefore they used me almost as an internal consultant to remove barriers to growth. They set me, they told me this is something that no one seems to be able to solve, so could you possibly go and see if there's a way to solve it? Or I would go to them and say, you think this is world class, this thing that we're doing here, but it's actually not working well enough for our growth. So they put me through my paces. They taught me a great deal. Right. And I've also obviously done an awful lot of education, Cranfield University School of Management, Ashridge College, etc., and lots extra. And for the last 20 years, as you mentioned, I have been absolutely fascinated by companies that grow, as you say, at 15% or more year after year. That's a very small percentage of companies that manage to do that, and they literally outperform everyone else in their industry. And I've always been, even 20 years ago, I was absolutely fascinated by what it was that they did that was so different. So I ended up reading books and interviewing the chief execs and in effect crawling all over these companies, trying to understand why it was that, and I don't say that they do it forever, for many, many years, while they're doing these specific things, they just have amazing results. And some of you you'll know some of the examples anyway. I mean, companies like Apple were as just an incredibly well-known one of them, but there's many more, and we've researched them. And then that allowed us to spot these 9 characteristics that allow companies to consistently grow profitably year after year. And as a result of that, we use that with our clients, and the results have been very, very good. So I'm overjoyed with the result of it all.
Incredible. You have helped companies generate tens of millions, as a result of the program that you do. And would you share some of the growth rate of your few clients you've helped over the years?
Yes, absolutely. I worked with one company in Birmingham, and in 2.5 years, they grew at 400%. I worked with another company that was a small firm. It was 11 million. I obviously worked with much smaller firms than that as well, but this particular one was 11 million. And they were so inspired by the work that we did with them that they blew my mind. In 3 months flat, they increased their profit by 237%. I nearly fell off my chair. And that was because of some of the principles that we're going to be sharing with you today. And there's many more. So, for instance, I worked with a company that was international, and they increased revenue by 95 million. That's dollars. Another company that's pan-European, they hadn't managed to grow at all in 5 years. And after working with us, they're now growing at 12% year after year. And it's interesting because I love the customers, so I could talk to you about their customers forever. Yeah. And they had to, in order to make it work, they had to win sort of quite large deals that were across several different countries, and they had to be several years long, each of the contracts, and they hadn't managed to win any of these projects for a long time, and now they're managing several times a year, they're winning yet another one of those. So it's really exciting to see what they do.
Incredible. I love how you have helped both sides, bigger companies and smaller companies, to do, to grow and still maintain the results that you get, which is outstanding results.
Yes, well, it's lovely. It's interesting to start with, because of my background, I thought I'd only be working with larger companies.
Right.
But I found that anyone who has big aspirations, anyone who has big dreams, we get on really, really well, and we talk the same language. So it doesn't actually, I've just been working with someone, it's just her and her husband who runs a small company, and she is probably one of my most successful customers. The results are still coming in, but I have never seen anyone transform so quickly.
Incredible. You have something very special that you focus on when helping companies, and that is Honeypot Value Proposition. Would you talk to us about that for a moment?
Yes, absolutely. So most companies think that they are different. In their eyes, they see that they're different. But in the eyes of the customers, it's like a fog. So if you think of, for instance, just to understand this fully, if you think about telecom companies, so if you think about them, if you took the logo off them, could you really tell them apart? So when you phone their call center, if you didn't know the name of the company, does the answer phone service look at all different from one company to the other? Or when you get to talk to the call center themselves, is there any real difference? Or even when you look at the services that they offer, could you really say that other than maybe some of the prices are slightly, I'm not talking about price here, I'm talking about the value that they provide. So the services look pretty similar, and that is because most companies seem unable to come up with what's called a value proposition that really makes them seem different in the eyes of the customers.
Right.
So one of the things that I speak about, and also that we work with clients, and it's a very important part, it's one of the 9 characteristics of the blueprint, is that they have a difference. They come up with a differentiation, we'd say, as a technical word, but that allows them in the eyes of the customer, and that's the only important thing here. So in the eyes of the customer, they add so much value that they significantly remove or reduce a pain that the customer is suffering from. So, for instance, let's think of an example here. Photon Star is one of the companies that I researched, and they are amazing because even throughout the recession, they were doubling revenue year after year, and their profitability is 35%. And Photon Star understood they only target supermarkets and hotels, and they understood that the hotels didn't just want LED bulbs. They didn't want just to be able to provide electricity. They wanted bulbs, LED bulbs, that would significantly help them to achieve their business goals.
Right.
And one of those goals, especially during the recession, was to reduce costs. But even now, so as a result of that, the Photon Star people were able to so dramatically reduce the cost of electricity that was being spent in these massive hotels and massive supermarkets,
Right.
that they were leaving everyone else behind. And then in addition to that, they also allowed these places to totally achieve their requirements for CO2 reduction in one fell swoop. So as a result, this little tiny company that's Photon Star took on the massive giants like GE and left them standing.
Right.
And that's the sort of thing. And yet most companies are like, and no one sees this, but most companies are like the telecom company. In the eyes of the customers, people can't actually tell the difference from them to the competitors down the road. Was that clear, Yukai?
Absolutely. I love the way that you've just given us an example so that our audience will be able to relate the application of the concept to their own business, if you are to include this in your plan. Jane, imagine you are coming to my company and you are to assist me in growing my company. Other than focusing on the value proposition, what other areas would you have me focus on if I'm to expand or to grow?
Well, another area that's very, very important and makes a big difference is in making sure that the company knows where it's headed.
Right.
Someone once used a wonderful example to me. They said, otherwise you're like a ship. If you haven't got a compass bearing, the likelihood of you ending up in any port at all is pretty low, but you ending up anywhere that you particularly want to end up is nil. So when we work with companies, there's usually, if it's a small company, there's usually a couple of people running the firm. If it's a larger company, there's usually a bigger leadership team. And it's very important that those people are seen to do two things, are seen to understand where the business is going, and not just understand it, but be so inspired that they wax lyrical so that anyone else working with them, whether it's suppliers, whether it's employees, whether it's their peers, whether it's customers, they see that passion, they see that excitement of where they're going to go. And when you see, whether it's just a couple of leaders or whether it's a larger team, when you see them all so clear and so inspired by where they're going to want to go, that they actually don't want to talk about anything else because it's just caught their imagination, that means that everyone else working with the company is also aligned, and they get sort of caught up on it. And I mentioned Apple before, and Apple is a great example where under Steve Jobs, of course, struggled for years and found it very hard, and then eventually sort of understood, and he decided that they wanted to make a dent in the universe. And by that, he had this amazing thing that we take for granted now about bringing music, the beauty of music, the beauty of pictures, the beauty of film, the beauty of equipment that you just want to stroke, it's so beautiful, and merging that with the functionality of the IT world so that they had something new. So it wasn't just about achieving a functional aim. It was about merging that with something, with elements that people get very excited about. And as a result, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people work for Apple. I used to know the number. But everyone, I'm sure we've all had this experience, whoever you met during that time working for Apple, you could see the excitement, you could see how proud they were to work with an organization. And as a result, you had this group of individuals all valued for their individuality and yet all marching in the same direction, and as a result they became the world's most valuable company for a while, and definitely the most valuable technology company. I've never seen any business grow so quickly, and it was just because once you get the momentum of everyone heading the same direction, you know you've made it.
Incredible. I absolutely, love how they've done, over the last few years. In your experience, Jane, if you're talking to business owners, do how can you get business leaders to get to that point where they inspire the rest of their organization? Well, are there any steps or thing business owners can do to get to that point?
Well, absolutely. We tend to start with what we call a blueprint for growth benchmarking. If you type it into Google, you'll find blueprint for growth benchmarking. And what it allows people to do, companies to do, is to know exactly where they stand compared to those amazing companies that I've been referring to. So it looks at each of the 9 characteristics that drive growth, and then it shows them exactly where they stand and what works, what needs focus, and but yet where they're really strong. So it's a very good return on investment then to do any further work. So in terms of how we then work with clients, there's 2 ways we do this. I have something called 6 weeks to results, which is a coaching service, and I sometimes use the coaching service without even doing the benchmarking beforehand, and it just allows clients to really understand, pick an area that they want to make major progress on, and we can work in 6 weeks. Most of my clients work in more like 12 or 18 weeks because it takes them a while to work out all of these different things. But they say, okay, I want to achieve revenue by a specific amount and I want to do it by this deadline. And so what we do is we work each session, and it's 6 sessions of 1 hour. So that's one way. Another way is that I actually work with the leadership team, and I have a team of people, and so either 1 or 2 of us will work with the leadership team, and we actually go through workshops and we get them to, first of all, understand a key principle that they need to adopt from the blueprint for growth, and then we guide them to think out how they want to do it, because it's about their business. This is not about imposing any particular way of working on anyone. It's a case of opening up their minds, giving them some examples of what works extremely well for growth, and then guiding them to think through how they want that to work in their own business.
Incredible. Thank you for that. And Jane, we've been talking about the 9 characteristics for fast growth. We've covered a few of them. Can we just talk about the other characteristics at this point?
Well, there's quite a few, to be honest.
Yes.
I think that I can run you through the rest of them.
Yes.
So, for instance, another one is standing for something.
Right.
Companies that are seen for, like, for instance, Innocent, the drinks company.
Yes.
If they want to really be in the business of making it easy for people to do themselves some good, and you can see that they even talk about ducks on the cartons. If you go in there, they have all this wonderful fresh fruit that goes into their drinks, and then at the bottom of it they'll put 3 rubber ducks just to make sure that you're paying attention.
Yes.
And they stand for something. And then Rackspace, during the time, they're a web hosting company, and during the time that during the recession, when they were growing at 23% with 24% profitability, their major thing was about being known for fanatical support.
Right.
So I don't know if you heard the stories, but people would be working late at night because something had gone wrong with their website, and they'd suddenly discover that there was someone delivering pizza to the premises, because otherwise they wouldn't get to eat. And there's another example that I love, Help for Heroes, the charity.
Right.
Their website, they did a deal, and probably you might remember, with the Woolwich. I think it was the Woolwich, some big bank that they were working with, building society, and they hadn't realised that it was going to have so much massive interest from the public. And so this is a big opportunity for Help to Heroes to make a lot of money, because all the public wanting to give them lots and lots of money, and instead the website couldn't cope and the website fell over. So Rackspace, knowing that it was so important, they worked through the night and they did everything to pull out all the stops. They pulled lots of people in and they just made sure that they could actually salvage. And there's loads of examples of that. So standing for something is like a third example. But I don't want to overload people at the moment. I think there's a lot to take in. A lot of the messages we can go through on the blog and things like that, but I would like to drip feed that information to people rather than giving them too much information all in one go.
Incredible. You have given us a lot already to think about. In your experience, Jane, where do you see business owners, particularly startups, go wrong when they attempt to grow their business?
Right, okay. Well, actually, just before I answer that, the one thing I should have said at the end is that the two things I have run through with you today will make a huge impact for companies on their own. It takes years to master all 9 characteristics, right, but you can have a huge impact on the business. So now answering your question, where do I think that, to be honest, it varies. I would say that there's 2 key areas that they go wrong. Mm. One is they don't get clear about what they really want. They're almost waiting for someone to give them the okay, right, to dream and to decide what they could get very excited about. And because they never get that clarity, they're never really able to say, okay, so this is where I want to head, and this is where I am today, and we're looking at this with extreme clarity. And therefore, okay, so what are the 2 or 3 areas over the next year or 2 years or 3 years that this business has to become extremely good at in order to close that gap? And instead, it's working in the business, so it's doing the business day to day as opposed to standing back. And a lot of people, I think, are almost nervous to ask themselves what they dream about, what they would love to achieve. But it's when you harness that emotion, it's when you find out what would be very exciting to achieve, that you make a big difference. So that's one. And then 2, the second area that most companies go wrong, and big companies as well as small companies, they don't get close enough to their customers, and therefore they're not able to create, for instance, the honeypot, because they don't understand the pain that wakes those customers up in a cold sweat at night. In fact, most small businesses don't even define their target customer base precisely enough. Then therefore they end up trying to target so many people. But as a very, very good marketeer said to me recently, if you try to target everyone, you target no one, because they don't hear. There's so much going on. There's so much information. You need to understand the type of businesses so that when you talk to them, whether it's by an article or an advert or whatever it might be, you're talking their language, and they say, wow, how did you know I felt that way? Right. And then when you do that, then you center your whole business around customers, then you could make a huge progress.
Incredible. Thanks for clarifying that. You on a different subject, Jane. You've been running a business for over 20 years. What challenges have you personally faced, that you think our audience might benefit in hearing, that other entrepreneurs go through those same things, and how have you overcome them?
Right, okay, well, it's a journey, and I'm still on that journey. Yes. So I think one of the things is taking the step to employ people in different ways. And there's good ways of doing that now, because you can use associates as well as employing people. And I think to actually make that step, and that took me a long time, and then it took me realizing that I hated working on my own before I actually started to employ. So once we've done that, it's been a massively more joyful experience, and as a result we've reached far more companies. But even before that, the strange thing was we were getting to work with companies like Microsoft and Empower, and many of the big names like Merck and Raytheon. So it felt very successful anyway. But I just wasn't standing back and actually understanding what I wanted. I was too focused, as I said, on doing business day to day, on working in the business rather than actually following my own advice. So that's one thing. And then other challenges. Oh yes, that as with many companies, you tend to suffer, and obviously I can be winning small deals, but also we win some very big deals from larger companies.
Right.
And sometimes in the past we had times when we had masses of business, and other times when the business dropped a bit, and I think that's very normal for many companies. And there's peaks and troughs. And so I was so frustrated by this, because after all, I wanted to set the example. I didn't want to be suffering from this, because I know how to grow. So as a result, I actually went out again and I spoke to the leaders in 24 companies who were not suffering from peak trough issues.
Right.
And as a result of that, it took us 18 months to complete the research. But as a result of that, I wrote a book, and it's called Sales Techniques. And I haven't published it yet. We're about to publish it. But that book actually takes you step by step how to ensure that the business consistently grows, as opposed to some form of where you're heading roughly upwards, but there's this horrible peak trough nature that's going on.
Incredible. What I love about you, with the many things, but Jane, you have a way of taking something that's seemingly impossible, seemingly difficult things, and break it down so that our audience will be able to understand. What mindset should business owner have if they are to remain in the game or in business for as long as you have been? Because 20 years in business, doing the same thing, is a long time.
It is. Actually, 16 years, Yukai.
Yes.
I was focused on growth for other companies before I set up Strategenic. But yes, 16 years, I'm pretty proud of that. So in terms of the perfect mindset, I think there's three things I would say. First of all, it's a journey.
Right.
I, for ages, was too hung up on the end results. And in fact, I was probably the worst culprit here. So I wasn't enjoying the journey.
Right.
And I think enjoying it is absolutely key. Unless I was getting, yes, I always got excellent results for all our clients, but unless the business was growing in the way that I thought it should be growing, then I was frustrated. And it's a horrible way to run a business.
Right.
And so finally, and it's been probably the hardest lesson I've had to learn, is to just actually enjoy it and to remove that time pressure. Don't get me wrong, I still set deadlines. We still make fast progress, but it's about making sure that it's not just this massive rush the whole time that stops you enjoying it. So that's one thing. And also, in terms of learning the nine characteristics of the blueprint, that is a journey too. So rather than trying to get your head around all of them quickly, just taking it step by step and bit by bit is very good. The next bit is the customer centric.
Right.
If you can get to the point, and people are a bit nervous about this, but even if you go on LinkedIn and I have just recently targeted someone who was one of the management team on Virgin,
Right.
their top Virgins, and I happened to meet this guy at an event, and I happened to have a very brief conversation with him at the end of it, and I asked him several years later to come to an event, and he wasn't able to. And then just recently I said, could I possibly meet with you? I would like to have a conversation. And that's all I was asking for, just to meet with him. And you know what? He said yes. And then I met another guy who's very, very senior, incredibly senior in Intel. And I recently said to him, would you mind meeting? And you know what? He came back and says, yes, of course I remember you.
Wow.
And we're meeting on Friday of this week. So if I can pluck up courage, and it did take a bit of courage to go out to those incredibly successful people, then I'm sure that using your contacts on LinkedIn or just going through your contact book of people who are prospective, the sorts of customers you really want to win, I am sure that you could regularly go out for coffee or even lunch, whatever you prefer, with these people, and you can then say to them, okay, so what's on your mind? And once you've had a gentle part just to get their trust, then I'm sure they'll open up to you, so you can start to get your finger on the pulse of what they're really focused on, and that is absolutely essential. And then the third area that I would pull out in terms of the perfect mindset is tracking progress in order to learn.
Right.
So, for instance, the honeypot, it sounds quite simple when you first do it, but when you go through the process of trying to understand what that pain is that wakes your customers up at night, and then, well, okay, what can we offer? It might look like nothing we offer today. What can we offer that significantly eliminates or reduces the pain that those customers feel? The first time you do that, it might not be quite right. I had a client who was very successful in the end, but to start with, they came up with what they thought was a wonderful honeypot. But actually, they were too far advanced. It implied that it was a training company,
Right.
and they were a very good training company, but it basically meant that their clients would need to measure certain key things before they started the training in order for my clients to deliver the honeypot. And the clients just weren't ready for it. So they had to go back to the planning board, and they had to try again. And that's fine. This isn't about getting the answer first time. This is about tracking something, about learning from it. And then as a result, the answers you'll come up with will be even better and even more exciting.
Incredible. I'm learning so much from what you are sharing, and I'm also taking notes, and I hope our audience today are doing exactly the same thing, because it's these little nuggets you're sharing that actually makes a difference, whether you as a business owner are going to succeed or you're going to fail to get to where you want to be. Any final thoughts before we come to an end with our audience today?
Only that if the words top performance come, if you like the idea of improving performance, if you like the idea maybe of having more control or more impact on your market, if you ever had a dream that you maybe didn't even dare think about doing something where you improve the industry you're in, whether it's just in a local area or wider, then you're the sort of people that I love working with, and I would just go and look at the blog and see what you can learn, because I love helping companies like that. So I hope that the posts on the blog will really resonate with you and will help you greatly.
Incredible. That brings me nicely to what I was going to ask you next. If people want to connect with you, what other places can they find you? Would you share your website or maybe your LinkedIn details?
Yes, absolutely. So the website is www.strategicplanningforgrowth.co.uk. And the LinkedIn profile, if you search for Jane Bromley and you see a woman in a red dress with some drop earrings, then you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Incredible. Alternatively, send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com and we'll put you in touch with Jane. Do you have any work email address that they can reach out to you through?
Of course. My direct email address, if they'd like a conversation, is Jane, so Jane, and then I'll spell this, but the word is stratagenic. So strategenic.co.uk.
Incredible. Once again, thank you, Jane, for a great interview. And I'm sure all the business owners in our community, in our audience, have a much clearer understanding of what is necessary for growth in their organization. And to you, our audience, thank you for being here with us. And if you are getting in touch for the very first time, I invite you to have a look at some of the interviews we've done in the past, and you'll find something that can help your business right away. And apply the things that you've learned. They really, truly transform your business if you apply them. And of course, get in touch with Jane if you have got some questions. With that said, thank you all for being here with us. I look forward to being with you again in another episode of Enlightened Entrepreneur. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
And we wish you all the success in your next endeavor very soon. And I'm hoping that you get to speak at one of our events very soon, Jane.
Yes, I'd like that. I've really enjoyed this interview, Kai, and you've been very encouraging and guiding me beautifully through it.
Incredible. Thanks again, Jane.